We are with Vote Squamish Election 2011, and we're outside of the chief. We're going to go inside any moment to talk with editor David Burke about the upcoming election coverage. Come with us. We're with David Burke from the Squamish Chief. Welcome, David.
Hi, Denise. How are you?
Very good. So we're talking about municipal elections and elections generally, and speaking, and with regards to the paper, that's going to be our conversation today. So tell me a little bit. What is the position that the paper takes in the whole election process?
Well, one of my colleagues recently said that we judge the job we've done during an election by voter turnout. So we really want to engage the community and engage readers in the election process by providing answers to candidates' questions. But in terms of our editorial coverage, as in the news pages of the paper, we really want and desire a neutral stance. But that doesn't mean that everything is going to be fair or equal all the time. In terms of us putting the question.
I'm going to stop you there because that's okay, because we've talked about two separate issues, and I want to, because one of them was engaging the people, and the next is neutrality. And I think both of those comments need a bit more time to talk about them. So engaging the community. How do we do that with a paper?
Well, we provide a number of different forums for engagement. One of them being coverage of election events, of the election in general, whether that's through candidate forums or candidates announcing their candidacy. We give them a chance to speak and say, here's why I'm running, here's what I think I can do for the community. And then we also provide the questions for the candidates each week during the campaign. And those are two separate things, that one of which is the candidates' words themselves, and as well as coverage based on a reporter's best news judgment of what we think is newsworthy. So in the sense of looking at the candidate questions, one of the things that we have to look at is we've got to set ground rules for the candidates, such as, for example, each mayoral candidate this time around is getting 100 words to answer each question, and each council candidate's getting 50 words. So if one of those comes in at 65, let's say, or 70 words, I've got to send it back to the candidate and say, sorry, everyone else is coming within the 50-word limit. We need you to chop this down a little bit. And
that's speaking a little bit to neutrality again, so we'll leave that one for a minute on the amount of words, but more on engagement. How do you measure whether people are engaged in what you're printing? Do you sell more ads? Do they buy more papers? How do you know that they're paying attention and watching? Are they discussing it on the street? How do you know that you're the legitimate source for engagement with the citizens?
Well, I think number one, that we're getting comments online, and that we're also seeing a few letters to the editor, but also just general input from the community. We're out on the street every day, and we talk to people, and they say that was a good question, or they might say, gee, that candidate's answer was this, that, or the next thing. So it's difficult sometimes to gauge how it's being received, but I think if we put it out there, and people who want to be engaged will be engaged, hopefully by being able to read the candidates' answers to the same question and comparing and contrasting what they're saying.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about, and this is still on the engagement thing, but social media, websites, online. As time has gone on, things have changed as a campaigning, signage, print media. Things have changed. Like, campaigning now is different than campaigning was even 9 years ago, 3 times ago. So what do you think about that? Because on a social media site, you'd be able to, you see if people are paying attention in the sense that they're responding, but you don't get that necessarily immediate feedback. Do you think that that's changing the campaign in a good way, bad way? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's all engagement, and it's all positive in terms of bringing people into the discussion. Whether it's a forum that's specifically designed to have candidates answering questions or asking questions about each other or whatever, or whether it's our online comments. We've seen a lot of engagement, but it tends to be from the same sort of 100 or 200 people in town. But if people can go on there and just see, who's saying this, who's saying that, that sort of thing, then I think it's all positive in terms of voter engagement and citizen engagement.
And are you getting any of your information from that as well? Are you looking at social media sites and saying, okay, this is a concern out there, or is it strictly the old feet on the street?
I think it helps to have the social media sites to look at as a general sort of what's the tone of the discussion out there, and also whether the candidates themselves talking about and when they engage with voters that way. There's a way that we can maybe guide the next question of the week, for example, in our paper, but also it's a good way to see. Where are people going with the election, and perhaps also sort of who's very engaged with social media, and you do see quite a wide range there. There are some that are right into it, and others that that maybe aren't as tech savvy and shy away, and that's not a bad thing. That doesn't say that person can't be a good leader or a good counselor or mayor, but it's just an indication of sort of who's up with the technology and the way that people engage these days.
Well, I guess there's a lot of different ways to campaign, and I'm looking at, some people have signs, some people have chose to not have signs, some people are having independent meetings, some people are not. So I would see that as similar, the same. So let's talk about neutrality. Mm-hmm. Neutrality, I think one of the advantages that a paper has, in my view, is that they are seen as being fairly neutral, mm-hmm. that they're giving an independent sort of look at issues. Mm-hmm. Am I correct? Is that what you strive for? What are you looking at and striving for when you're covering issues and elections? Any election, but this one in particular, any?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the newspaper is not entirely neutral because we do have an editorial policy, correct? But in terms of our...
What does that mean?
Well, an editorial, basically I write the editorials in the newspaper, and while we have a policy of not endorsing candidates, people might be able to sort of figure out our general take on things, or at least my general take on things, by reading my editorials. And they might be able to say, I think he would vote for this candidate or that candidate, but I'm not going to endorse because I just don't think I'm that smart. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm so much more engaged than anyone else to be able to advise people on who to vote for. Mm-hmm. But I am going to toss the issues out there and take a stand on the issues, and then let people decide, whether that's a valid gauge for their vote in terms of who they're going to vote for.
Mm-hmm. I actually love that comment, Dave, because this is what I say all the time. I say, and I don't have a preconceived notion typically. I kind of look at them and weigh it and sort of watch and pay attention and sort of say, how's it going to go? But I always think, there's people I have not voted for that are terrific. And those are people that I have voted for who are not terrific. And so, who would have all the answers, right? So that's democracy. Mm-hmm. What do you think about democracy in general terms? What are the good sides, the bad sides of democracy?
Well, I think the good side is that when you've got a more engaged citizenry, and I think one of the gauges for that is voter turnout at an election, right? When you've got a more engaged citizenry, you've got a stronger community, I think. You've got less dissent if community engagement during processes such as the SODC is full on, and you've got more buy-in as to which community initiatives are being done with the blessing and the approval of the community. So I see not every decision that the council makes is going to be based only on what the citizens say. Mm-hmm. But when the citizens are engaged, then the council will have a better gauge of where the community would like to go. And I would hope also that councillors and the mayor aren't just holding their fingers up to the wind and saying which way is the political wind blowing, but also trying to lead. And part of trying to lead is engaging the community with your persuasive powers in terms of and engaging the community and trying to say, okay, we've weighed all the options. Now I think this would be the best. What do you think? It's important that leaders not just listen, but also try to lead. But listening is where it starts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would agree with that as well. So I'm agreeing with everything that you're saying today. I think it would be difficult. So tell me about this. Now, once we get a group here, we're going to get 6 councillors, and we're going to get a mayor. They're going to be new, and we're going to move off, and they're going to have the best intentions, and things are going to go right, and they're going to go wrong, and sometimes they're going to be roasted in the paper, including your own. And I think part of the problem is that it's difficult to, when you lead, to make go in a direction and not take criticism. And I think that's why a lot of people don't want to do it. And obviously you must be criticized because that's engagement. Mm-hmm. But can we talk about that a bit? Like, what do you think about that? Like, do you think that there's fair treatment for issues always, or could it be better? What do you think?
Well, I mean, the newspaper's job is to in terms of the editorials that we write, to weigh the issues and take a stand. Sometimes the stand is going to be with one foot on the fence, but sometimes it'll be one side or the other. But I think the bottom line is that councillors and the mayor deserve our admiration for taking on that mantle of, I'm going to be criticized. I know I'm going to be criticized by someone, no matter what decision I make, and treating them with respect, and making sure that they know that we appreciate their efforts. We know that they're not getting paid a huge amount for what they do, and that they're doing it because they love the community. They want to serve the community, but we may not agree with them on everything, but that we appreciate their efforts and especially appreciate their efforts to make sure that when they sit down to make a decision, that they've weighed the citizens' point of view before coming to their decision.
Excellent. And now, do you have any final thoughts or anything else that you'd like the community of Squamish to know about Dave Burke or the paper or the process? Mm-hmm.
Well, I wanted to say that I think this is probably about the 9th or 10th election that I've covered since I came to Canada 16 years ago from Seattle. That it's always been my policy to not endorse candidates. I just think that can work in a big city. That can work in a big city with 2 major newspapers, other smaller newspapers, a dozen or more broadcast outlets, to have candidate endorsements. But in a town with only a couple of media outlets, I just don't think it's fair. And I don't think I'm smart enough to be able to tell people, here's what I think, here's who I think you should vote for. I want to throw the issues out there. I want to state an opinion on the issues and let people decide for themselves which candidates they think are important and whether my editorial is a valid reason to cast their vote one way or another, or whether it's out to lunch.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you very much for the job you're doing in engaging the citizens, and we'll look forward to a healthy voter turnout on November 19th. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.